When I heard them practicing that this morning, I went, I'm at the right place at the right time at the right church with the right people. Come, celebrate, awaken to who we truly, really are. Today's talk is called Serving Life. Serving Life. Because, you know, we're all just doing time here. You know that, don't you? This is a life sentence you've got here, right now. You know, we are serving life. That's what we're doing. It's not a matter of if you'll spend time here. It's what you're going to do with that time you spend here, right? That's the most important thing. We're all doing time right here. What are you doing with that time? That's the most important thing we ask ourselves today. Serving life. Last week we said that we are here to choose the truth over being comfortable. And that we said that the things that we teach you at Unity are disturbing. If you don't leave here and you're not a little disturbed about who you sometimes are during the week, we have not done our purpose. And the things that disturb us most, that trouble us the most, are the things we fear most. And we said that there were three of them in form last week. We said the first one, where fear shows up, is a form of deflation. That sense that we all carry that we're not good enough. The other one is a form of inflation, where we feel better than everybody else because we're spiritual and we go to Unity and they don't. And the other one that we carry with us is a form of avoidance, where we don't deal with what's in front of our noses to do. We don't take care of the business at hand. We avoid it, whether it's with spiritual principle. We don't want to take a look at those habit patterns that we keep repeating over and over and over again, no matter where we go, no matter who we're in relationship with. Those are the three things that we fear most. That's the form it takes. But underlying that is the biggest fear we all have. And that's the fear of being ultimately separate from God and each other. We fear death. Everyone does. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. The Buddhists teach that it's very important to keep impermanence on your left shoulder, just to remind you that this is temporary here. No one knows when their Earth visa is going to be pulled. Not even you, oh psychic spiritual one. So we want to keep it close by, not to be haunted or fearful of it, but just not to run from it, to really engage it and see it for what it is. It can be a great teacher and teaching for us if we're willing to do that. I've been getting all wrapped up lately and excited about the Gospel of Thomas, according to Thomas. And these quotes come from that. I don't have them up on the board for you. And he said, Jesus, whoever discovers the interpretation of these sayings will not taste death. Jesus said, if your teachers say to you, look, God's divine rule is in the sky, well, then the birds will precede you. If they say to you, it's in the sea, well, then the fish will precede you. God's divine rule is within you, and you are everywhere. When you know yourself, you will be known, and you will understand that we are one. But if you don't know yourself, you live in poverty, and you are the poverty. The followers said to Jesus, tell us how our end will be. He said, have you discovered the beginning? Then why are you seeking the end? For where the beginning is, the end will be. Fortunate is the one who stands at the beginning. That one will know the end and not taste death. The disciples said to him, when will the rest for the dead take place? And when will the new world come? And he said to them, what you're looking forward to has already come. And you don't know it. It's standing right in the midst of you, and you don't see it. It's sitting right next to you, and you don't understand it. They said to him, tell us who you are, so that we can believe in you. And he said to them, you examine the face of heaven and earth, but you have not come to know the one who is in your presence. You do not know how to examine the present moment. And that's what we do here. We examine the present moment over and over and over again to see what we might be missing. And when we do that, it says, the heavens and the earth will roll up in your presence. And whoever is living with the living one will not see death. That's quite a promise, don't you think? That's the life sentence that you've got. You're serving life. You're learning how to switch from taking life to serving life. And the idea for this talk and the title from it comes from an amazing Netflix video that we watched about a place called the Louisiana State Penitentiary in a wonderful little town where inmates are there for their life sentence. They're there for the whole shebang. And most of their sentences are 90 years plus. And so they decided to try to do something different with them while they were there. And so they had them open up and be part of their own hospice program. They trained them how to be hospice volunteers so they could be there with other members of their family, because their family are the members of people who are in that church. They're all there for their whole lifetime to learn how to be with them and how to look death straight in the eye and go right through it to what exists on the other side. And it is an amazing story of transformation and awakening, not unlike what we've been talking about in this book we've been studying, Life Beyond Belief by Alice Gardner. In the chapter on Nowhere to Stand, she says this: seemingly negative events and even extremely shocking occurrences can be used by awakening to help us to break out of our old habits and enter into a whole new way of relating to life. If it's possible for men who have had the habit pattern of being takers from life, of having a habit pattern of being tough guys who only grab all the gusto they can, who are stuck in the mind-made self of me, myself, and I, if it's possible for them to have breakthroughs, what do you think might be possible for us in our own life every day? Yes? We have that capacity to awaken from the mind-made self to the spiritual self. And this story is just one miracle after another. Watching these men have these incredible cosmic breakthroughs while they're there at the most possibly difficult moment in anyone's life while someone's dying. And they learn to do things they would never have ever done before. Taking care of someone while they're dying, if any of you has done that, is a rough task to show up for. But when you do show up for it, and you're there for it, in seeing physical impermanence, you get to connect with that which is spiritually eternal and never dies. It always shows up at that moment when you're really present for what's going on with someone who's leaving their mortal coil. You get to touch that which is immortal and cannot be touched. You get to know yourself. You get to go from just taking life to serving life. The genius man who got the idea for helping this transformation happen is actually his name, believe it or not. He's this big, old, southern Louisiana. He goes, I'm a big, old, southern, hawkish, Louisiana State prison kind of guy. And he goes, I want you to know that I've been doing this work for all these years, and a part of me just wanted to know, what could we do to really help these men? Really help them. Are we helping them with what we do? And he says this, listen to this from Master Kane, Qui-Chain Kane, the big old warden from Louisiana. We're supposed to correct deviant behavior. That's what corrections is. I can teach you skills and trades, but I just make you a smarter criminal unless we get to your heart. Unless we become moral. The criminal person is a selfish person who gets whatever they want by taking it. The way to be the opposite of that taker is to be a giver. The ultimate gift is to be a hospice giver. When you learn what this truth is teaching us, you'll switch consciousness from what can I get from spiritual teachings to what can I serve other people. When you become lesser, you become greater. I learned this lesson in my life because even though I was a spiritual person in the beginning wanting to awaken, I still came from a family of takers. When you take a look at the way in which the prisoners are treated as they walk from one place to another, they literally are shackled. They've got chains around their waist and their hands are shackled like this. And they've got chains on their feet, and they're moving like this. They're shackled by the appearance of what they're stuck in and what their choices have brought them so far. And I realized, I'm the same way. I'm shackled and chained by my old worn-out habit patterns that show up in my life. I'm the same way. I'm just as imprisoned as everybody else is. I'm wasting a lot of time when I'm not serving the life of awakening. To get free is not about changing the circumstances in your life. When you leave here, you will have the same problems you drove up in the parking lot with. I guarantee that. The same situations, the same difficulties, the same challenges that you met before you came in will be here for you when you leave. What happens is your mind has changed. And watching these men engage this hospice program, this little call for awakening, was just awesome, because you could see literally their faces changing from walking like this to all of a sudden having been with someone who's going through the most difficult passage of their life. Their face began to soften. They were no longer tough guys. Their old thought system left them nowhere to stand. They were on new ground, holy, sacred ground, and they began to soften and open up and become present for each other. And the miracles that happen around those transformations are the same miracles that will happen for you today when you realize that you are not prisoner to anything but your own belief system. And the moment you choose to be free and awaken to how to not take from life but give to life, the whole lesson plan of awakening will happen for you. Because we're all in a correctional institution. It's called everyday life. You're not being punished by sin. Sin is nothing other than an opportunity to make correction. What do we suffer from? The same belief, separation. Everybody does. We all believe we're here alone by ourselves. That's the one thing that needs correction, not punishment. It needs correction. So here's this guy, Cain, Citizen Cain, the awakened one, the Buddha, who decides, let's offer them some way to make a shift in consciousness from just being takers to being givers. And I remember when that happened for me in my own life. Even though I had the teachings and I was in Science of Mind, I wanted to take everything I could from these teachings, learn what I could, so I could become spiritual, so I could manifest my destiny, so I could think thoughts and create the world I wanted. But I was still working from the genetic DNA program of Alvin and Rhoda. I was still a taker, wanting to take something. And it wasn't until years later, when we became involuntary hospice parents to someone who was dying of a terminal illness, where I got the shift from being a taker to being a giver, from taking life to serving life. With Kristen, we had to be present 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 5 years, and there was no break in that. And I literally learned how to put myself aside. And getting rid of myself, I found myself. I still have to make that switch 35 years later, over and over and over again. Am I just trying to take something from this, or can I switch to give something to it? The whole world changes when you do that. You've had that shift yourself, haven't you? What can I get from being real important? What can I be that would make me feel better than I already do? That's still taking. What can I give to this moment? And give abundantly to this moment. That's where the shift happens in consciousness. And watching what happened to these men, just awesome, awesome stories. One particular person was with his son. He'd already been through several rounds of watching and being there with somebody who was dying. And one of the things that he said that just blew my mind, it was just amazing. He said, you know, this man, this first person who I was with who was dying, who I bathed, took care of, and only had known for 5 days, and I closed his eyes for the last time. When he died, I cried like a baby. And I thought to myself, and yet, just a few moments ago, I took a gun and shot someone I didn't even know. How could I have done that? What was I thinking? His consciousness had shifted. He was no longer the mad dog consciousness, but the awakened one. That's what these teachings are bringing to us. Such an experience of oneness that it just changes us. One particular father was talking to his, 12-year-old son. They had a family day, and the shift in consciousness from being a taker to being a giver had happened. And he was sitting with his son, and his son had been told by him his whole life that it really wasn't his fault that he was there. And it was everybody else's fault. That's a common thing we do, blame somebody else. And he sat there with his son, he looked him straight in the eye and said, I am here because of the choices that I made. I created this experience for myself. You are the result of the choices that you make. I'm here because I made bad choices. And you'll be where you are because of the choices that you make. And I'm thinking, hallelujah, this is a new day. This is a shift in consciousness. And you and I are engaging the same spiritual principles in our life. Every time we realize, oh look, I'm shackled to this belief system. I'm getting stuck again. The freedom is a call to switch your consciousness from being a prisoner to being a free being, who can make a choice in any one moment to choose once again to be free inside of your own consciousness, inside of your own mind. In a lesser example, now again, this example is an extreme one. In a lesser example, we can look at a story of Frasier. How many here like Frasier? I still watch the Frasier episodes. I love it. I'm on my little machine watching Frasier. I don't even have earphones. I'm just watching the closed captions. And I'm laughing out loud. Some great comedy in that. And in one particular episode, it was about Mad Dog. You know the character Mad Dog, who is that, by the way, we all have a Mad Dog within us. He's sort of that announcer guy, and he is the embodiment, the sportscaster of me, myself, and I. He only thinks about himself. And in the opening scene, they're all at this Starbucks or coffee shop in Seattle. And this guy comes in with a gun to rob the place. And in the confusion, it looks like Mad Dog, in an act of bravery, knocked the gun out of the assailant's hand. And he becomes this incredible hero. He gets the newspaper, he gets on TV, he gets on the radio. But Frasier Crane has seen what's happened. What happened was, in the moment that the man pulled the gun out, Mad Dog grabbed Roz, the producer, who was 6 months pregnant, and hid behind her. And in hiding behind her, the gun inadvertently got knocked out of her hand. He wasn't saving anyone's life. He was a complete coward in that moment. And Frasier, for the rest of the 18 minutes of the episode, does everything he can to help him find his conscience. You're never going to be able to force anyone to awaken any sooner than they're willing to. You cannot do it. We all have an internal navigational system of conscience, and everybody has it there, but some have it so well hidden that they're not yet ready to do anything different. You've got to be really willing to do something very different if you want to change your consciousness. And Mad Dog is not willing at that point to change his consciousness, but that doesn't stop Frasier from driving everybody in his house crazy and trying to make this man become conscious. And in the last scene, they're having the award ceremony, and Frasier's doing the award thing, and he's just driven his family crazy with trying to get this guy to be honest, and he just won't do it. He's just not interested in it. And a particular thing that he does, he sets up a situation where he will become conscious. And in this amazing moment, he's got the flashing lights going over before he gives the award to Father O'Reilly, who was the father of the priest thing that he was when he was a child. And he stands up and he goes, "Yay, Mad Dog, you're really wonderful. I'm so glad you're getting this award." And then he has this woman who taught the 2nd and 3rd grade and taught morals to, "Mad Dog, you really done well with what I taught you." And then you even have a little 8-year-old boy there who's honking this horn and going, "I want to be just like Mad Dog, just like Mad Dog." And Frasier Crane flew in the mother so she would be there. "Oh, my boy, my son." And so Frasier goes, "I got him now." And so he says, "I wanted the announcer of this wonderful award is Mad Dog." And Mad Dog comes up and is sort of wrestling with the award like this. And he sits down. And all of a sudden, Mad Dog says, "I was going to read this speech, but I've changed my mind." And he starts to rip up pieces of paper. And of course, Frasier's looking at his dad and saying, "See, I told you he would come to his senses. I told you he was ready for a change. I told you he was." And he goes, "But I'm not going to read this to you. Instead, I just want to say," and he grabs the award and pulls it up and he goes, "This is awesome! Thank you, Seattle!" He's not ready yet to make a shift in consciousness. And his dad, of course, who's kind of the wisdom person on the show, is tapping him and saying, "Frasier, stop. Give it up. You can't force anyone to see anything that they're not yet ready to see." Do you hear what I just said? You can't force anyone to become more spiritual than they're willing to be right now in this moment. Just let it go. And of course, Frasier's going, "I've got to say something. I've got to say something." So the father, who's an ex-cop, calls out, "He's got a gun!" And all of a sudden, Mad Dog grabs his mother and hides behind We all have a mad dog within us, don't we? Don't we? You've got a mad dog within you. One of the men, when they were being interviewed for why they went on this hospice program to begin with, said, well, you know what? My whole life has brought me to where I am now. All the choices I've made have brought me to what I'm doing today. I'm stuck in prison for the rest of my life for crimes that I committed. So I've decided in doing this hospice program, why not try something completely opposite from what I've done before? What I'm doing so far has gotten me where I am. Are you willing to really do something opposite and different from how you usually do it? Are you? Are you really willing to, in primary moments when the going gets tough and you go back to your old shackled thought system where you're all chained up again, are you willing to try something completely the opposite? A shift in consciousness will happen if you find yourself really willing to do that. At the end of this incredible film, there are two men who are together, who are brothers, who were both incarcerated at the same time. And one brother is dying of cancer. And all the hospice volunteers who've been doing their hospice work in the prison with all the men are there, and they've been about now a year working together, being with many people who've made their transitions and left their bodies. And the older, more hardened brother is talking to the brother who's dying of the cancer. And he says to him, in an incredible moment of awakening, he's going, the thing that I'm getting to do with you now, to say goodbye to you before you die. That woman who I shot didn't get the opportunity to say goodbye to her family like I am. And he says, I am so sorry that I did that. And every single one of the men, the cameras on them, are crying because they all did the same thing. And they truly regret what they did. They are ready to do the opposite of what they had done before. And one young man, 28 years old, named Justin, who's this beautiful man who's probably now in his 30s, he said, you know, I came here because I did the crime and now I'm doing my time. I'm not here now just doing time. I'm serving life. And I have found my calling working as a gatekeeper to help people make their transitions from this world to the next world. His website is up online, by the way. This is a transformed, awakened being. You are that same transformed, awakened being because you're following the same principles for activating the truth in your life and getting more honest with what's going on in the moment. Let's look at the left of summation. I'll stop screaming at you for a moment. Today we learn, and we hopefully will learn, how to shift our consciousness from taking life to giving life, from serving time to serving life. The criminal person is a selfish person who gets whatever he wants by taking it. The way to be the opposite of that taker is to be a giver. God's divine rule is within you, and you are everywhere. When you know yourself, you will be known, and you will understand that we are all one, and that what you've been looking for is what you already are. Number 3. For where the beginning is, the end will be. Fortunate is the one who stands at the beginning. That one will know the end and will not taste death. If you can stay that present with what's going on in this moment, when it's time for you to leave, the Course in Miracles says, it'll be like a little and you'll be finished with your body. That's how the promise is for what being present in this moment can really bring for us. And finally, today, practice living in the present moment. And the heavens and the earth will roll up in your presence. And whoever is with the living one will not see death. That is an amazing process that we'll be involved with this week as we go from wasting time to serving life. A huge shift in consciousness from the mind-made self to the awakened one, the spiritual self. From me, myself, and I, what can I take, to the I that is we, that is us. What can I give to this moment? In serving others, you will find yourself. In losing yourself, you will know yourself and all beings as they truly are. We need more inmates on planet Earth to awaken to these truths we've talked about today. So practice well and deeply. It won't just be for you, but for all the other beings on the planet as well. Namaste.